and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrop.
And in the news this week, the White House spokesperson for President Trump said that Mike Pence, he can't be anti-gay because he had lunch with a gay politician.
I guess he's been converted.
Oh, and he touched him.
A Kentucky high school bans LGBT t-shirts and students rise up and have a good result.
A heartwarming story.
Yeah.
And a pro football star has come out as bisexual, and this is Bisexual Awareness Month. And he says he wants to play as himself.
Well, who else is he going to play as?
Well, I mean...
We don't have to get into the details.
Right.
I'm just making a cheap joke.
Okay.
And another ex-gay minister has come out as gay.
He's sorry. For the first time, a city in Oklahoma protects LGBT rights comprehensively.
Yeah. However, and Texas has criminalized unwanted sexting. That's a little complicated.
A drag act by people with Down syndrome fights for the right to perform in Michigan.
The man who pioneered the election of out LGBT people in Illinois has died.
Now, Lily Tomlin turned 80 over the weekend, and through a posting, we learned how she quietly supported a dying gay and AIDS activist almost 30 years ago.
And also from almost 30 years ago, Ryan White, they've erected an historic marker for him in Indiana.
And actor Kristen Stewart blew off those who told her, you just need to hide your sexuality if you really want to make it in this business.
Oh, it's an old story. All right, but let's start with the Trump administration.
All you need to know about Donald Trump is this. He congratulated Poland on the 70th anniversary of the start of World War II. That absolutely devastated Poland and then the world. He congratulated them.
That was pretty horrible, and I don't want to put this in the same category, but I would add the story of warning Alabama about the impending devastation from Hurricane Dorian. And then when it was
by a
pointed
Category
out,
5 hurricane, which no one ever heard of.
Right, and when the National Weather Service went so far as to tweet that that was absolutely wrong, repetitively they said, wrong, wrong, wrong. He said, it never hurts to be prepared. We laugh.
No, we're not. We shouldn't laugh about any of this. I mean,
No.
everybody talks about how bad Trump is. Why doesn't somebody do something about it?
Well, one problem with doing anything about it is that then you end up with Pence, and that really, I think, is one of the reasons he picked him, because so he'd have an insurance policy against not being thrown out of office immediately.
Actually, I think it was the guy who's going to jail, the campaign manager.
Manafort.
Trump was looking at Kasich. He thought, maybe I need somebody like that, you know?
Someone more progressive.
And he stopped Trump from meeting with Kasich, made sure he only met with Pence.
Hey, you need the evangelical vote, and that's why Pence ended up on the ticket. Well, Pence, as you may or may not remember, has a very long anti-gay record in Indiana as the governor, and since opposing same-sex marriage, opposing non-discrimination
Well, he's
rules.
the one working with all the evangelicals behind the scenes to get everything he wants. I mean, you know, Trump once said, again, they always say it's a joke when he says things like this, don't cross him on the gay stuff. He wants to kill them.
Yeah. So Pence went to Ireland to substitute for Trump, who wanted to stay home and play golf during the hurricane, and was scheduled to meet with the Irish Taoiseach, Prime Minister Leo Varadkar.
Who's openly gay and has a partner.
His partner. Are they married or not?
They keep saying partner, so I guess not.
I'm not sure. Maybe they are, and people just won't acknowledge him as a husband.
I wasn't invited. I've been to a gay wedding in Ireland.
We should look that up. Maybe we will while the show is on.
Right.
Anyway, so Pence is meeting with Varadkar, and a spokesman from the White House tweets out, Pence can't be anti-gay. For all those of you who think that Pence is anti-gay, hey, he just had lunch or had a meeting with the gay Prime Minister of Ireland.
And his partner, Dr. Matthew Barrett. He said partner.
Well, the real thing is that...
And it's from the White House, so it must be true.
The real tip-off is that Pence's wife showed up this time, because when Varadkar went to the vice presidential residence, which no one has remembered to mention, this is not his first meeting with Varadkar, the wife was not there. She had gone off to meet her sister or something, or Pence's sister showed up to stand in for her.
It used to be that Pence was not allowed to be alone with another woman.
Right.
And now it's, of course, the gays. You think we're joking? I swear, every time somebody posts something about Pence, everybody goes, that closet case. I don't know. I mean, he's a little tightly wound, and the anti-gay stuff is a little suspicious.
The haircut is so tightly wound. Anyway, the White House tried to turn this into a pro-gay moment, but we see right through them, and it's all nonsense.
In more Trump horrors, the firings of disabled federal workers have increased 24% under Trump.
Wow.
Now, there was a big controversy this week over Will and Grace, Eric McCormick and Deborah Messing, saying, I want to know who's going to this Trump fundraiser so I know who we should work with. And
an LA fundraiser for Trump?
They were a showbiz fundraiser, and they were accused of McCarthyism. I get sick of this. And of course, Whoopi Goldberg piled on and said, we can't be creating lists. You're the next one who's going to be on it. McCarthyism was so different because it was like a hint of having gone to a meeting 20 years ago that made you lose your livelihood.
Go to jail. Don't forget that 10 of them went to jail.
Well, they went to jail for not naming names in the hearings.
Yeah.
And it was about all that kind of, that's the McCarthyism. I mean, who you donate to is public record. We have talked about it on this show, about the people like the plutocrats who are donating to Trump. We don't want to patronize their businesses like Equinox and Soul Cycle. And The Shed, which is this art center at the new Hudson Yards in New York, where the fashion industry is clearing out and not presenting there because it's owned by Stephen Ross, I guess it is, right?
Yes, the related company's developer. Right. I do wonder where we draw the line. If he walks down a street, are we not allowed to walk down that street?
Well,
I don't know what his
well, look, it's very hard to be
ownership level is.
It's very hard to be pure. I'm sure many of the clothes were made in sweatshops in Bangladesh or something, and it's hard. But everybody's just so angry over Trump that it's like we're trying to do something.
Which I think is a good sign. Now, I came across another obscure little Trump play. Almost a year ago, in October 2018, the Trump administration announced that they plan to withdraw from the 192-nation Universal Postal Union.
Oh my God, yes.
Do you know about this?
Yes.
It's been in place for 145 years, and it is a worldwide collaboration of nations agreeing to postal rules.
It means when I put a U.S. stamp on a letter going to England or to Bangladesh, it's going to go there.
Right. So this, announcing their potential withdrawal last year, now this all comes into play this October. They have to decide by this October, that's when they would withdraw. Well, why, you ask, do we care about this other than the utter chaos that could erupt after withdrawing for something like this? Because it screws up the voting system.
Right.
Because overseas U.S. voters and military U.S. voters are now going to have trouble casting their votes in the 2020 election. And in fact, maybe in elections this year.
Why would the Trump people want to stop military? They're pretty popular with the military.
Well,
I don't get it. But they are.
Well, maybe the military are about a third of the overseas voters. There are many more. And who's overseas?
Cosmopolitan people.
Yes, who presumably are anti-Trump. But
there's got to be a way to get a letter or a package over here, isn't there?
Well, this has not happened yet. It is on the verge of happening. And the idea is that Trump, in his usual nutsiness, keeps saying things like, we want out of these big collaborations. We want direct one-on-one agreements, bilateral agreements with companies.
He is always trying to shave a few points here and there.
Yes, well, that's exactly what this is.
That's how he won in 2016.
That's what this is.
Look, I wasn't going to talk about the Straight Pride March at all in Boston, but it turned out to be a Trump rally.
Yes.
And there were more protesters than marchers. 36 were arrested in scuffles. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called it more like the I'm struggle with masculinity parade. They said you had a lot of trouble attracting women to this thing, didn't you?
Well, the Grand Marshal was our old pal Milo Yiannopoulos, the gay provocateur.
How is that straight pride?
One might ask, because really it's white pride.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Right.
It's white pride. So there were hundreds of marchers, but there were thousands of protesters. And what the protesters said was that the police were extremely aggressive with them, and they were holding a peaceful counter-protest to this march, and the police charged in, grabbed them, were extremely physically rough with them, used pepper spray.
I mean, the mayor was, Walsh, I guess, was trying to say,
Marty
we're
Walsh.
a very tolerant town and everything, but he did seem to unleash the police on the protesters.
We don't know that he unleashed the police on the protesters. The police, but the police operate under their own rules, and I would be a lot quicker to question the motives of the police themselves.
All right, are you sitting down? I'm going to tell you about a Trump appointee that did something good. This is U.S. Attorney Justin Herdman. He is in Ohio.
Northern District of Ohio.
In announcing the indictment of a man who threatened to shoot up a Jewish center in Youngstown, he said, he really let all the white supremacists have it. You can see this speech online if you'd Google him, saying that, these white supremacists have a right to their ideas, but that thousands of young Americans died in World War II to defeat their ideology, as did civil rights leaders who opposed them. Their voices may be distant, he said, but they can still be heard. It was very passionate, uncompromising, and the FBI is now acknowledging that white supremacists are more of a threat than Islamic terrorism in this country.
Finally. It took them a long time to do that, and I'm sure the Trump administration is not happy about that.
Trump? You got some more Trump?
No.
Well, I mean, the story from the border this week is that menstruating girls are bleeding through their underwear for lack of access to tampons and sanitary pads. Appalling conditions. But there was some good news from the Pew Research. Now, 26%, his base is evangelical, Trump. 26% of Americans 65 and older identify as white evangelical Protestants.
25%?
26%. Among those 18 to 29, however, the figure is 8%. They are losing the younger generation.
But the older generation, those are scary figures. They're the ones who vote.
They're dying. We're dying.
We're all dying. In Glendale, Wisconsin, the Common Council unanimously voted to bar conversion therapy for minors. That's a good little piece of political news.
In Norman, Oklahoma, that is the first city in the state of Oklahoma to pass comprehensive protections on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The vote in city council was almost unanimous. The mayor,
7-1,
Bria Clark, said, they've made Norman the most inclusive community in the state of Oklahoma.
And in Nevada, the Bay Hills Indian community has legalized same-sex marriage. Now, as you may or may not remember from stories on this show, Indian tribes have some federal separation in laws, and so they are not necessarily subject to the Supreme Court legalization of same-sex marriage and must take this under consideration individually. And there are hundreds of officially recognized tribes in this country. So a number of them, and a number of major ones, have done this, but we are noting along the way when anyone does do that.
And they apparently have a new LGBT...
I'm sorry, that was Bay Mills, Michigan.
Oh, because I was going to say in Nevada, there's apparently a new statewide LGBT group.
Yes.
Silver State
Equality.
Yeah, and California Equality is helping them out, and they really want to step up their efforts to. They want to firm up everything, not just pass a non-discrimination law, but really get into everything.
Well, if they're
take over,
if they're following the lead of Equality California, they're going to have hundreds of things to deal with, because Equality California is relentless about going through the entire. Set of laws.
An assembly panel there killed that bill we've been telling you about to make gay sex be treated the same as non-gay sex in terms of putting people on the offenses registry.
Yes, it was a little shocking.
It was because it was just very controversial. Even though it's about equalizing things, it's not about pandering.
It betrays the stigma and bigotry that still exists against same-sex sex.
But Governor Newsom did sign a bill that lets trans students obtain school records and diplomas with their preferred names and pronouns.
I think we should move to Kentucky.
Ah, yes.
To Martin County High School.
In Inez, Kentucky.
Where kids were showing up in a variety of T-shirts.
Well, two students showed up.
I'm saying the whole school, I'm sure, wears different messages on their T-shirts. Yes, exactly. But these students were asked to change their T-shirts. We have a picture of, there's one that said Queen Queer, which was regarded as a coming out message. And there was another one, Lady Lesbian.
So they were told,
I should be wearing that.
They were told, I think it was by an assistant principal, that these T-shirts are a disruption, and we don't promote that here.
But it got kicked up to the superintendent of schools.
Well, the students started protesting. There was a young woman named Gabby Blankenship. You can Google her and see this long video that she did about this. And she was pleading for tolerance and why can't we be treated like everybody else? She did a...
And why can't we all be kind to each other?
So, and the school, and they didn't just want these T-shirts, they wanted a gay-straight alliance. But they were told, you don't need a gay-straight alliance. You've already got friends that support you. That's what they were told. So ultimately...
it's only the assistant principal who's being mean to you.
Gabby and students, if they're not giving you a gay-straight alliance, call the ACLU in your state and they will get you one.
Well, in fact,
it's federal law.
The superintendent of schools apologized for what had been done to these kids and said that was absolutely wrong. These are not disruptive T-shirts.
You can wear anything you want as long as it's not vulgar or obscene.
Correct, and these are not, although the assistant principal clearly thought they were.
But on the Gay-Straight Alliance thing, they're saying it would be up to the school-based decision-making council of parents and staff. Not call the ACLU. You'll get one. I'm going to write to Gabby.
Okay. In other...
elsewhere in Kentucky, Montgomery County High School principal Philip Wilson, who made headlines years ago about trying to ban books with gay themes back in 2009, was charged with 30 counts of possession and sharing of child pornography.
Ooh. And in Gloucester, Virginia, the Gloucester School Board has gone ahead and filed an appeal of the decision in the Gavin Grimm case, the latest decision. So that case, which is turning into the Bleak House Jarndyce versus Jarndyce, which, if you've read the book, went on for centuries.
Right.
So Gavin Grimm is a winner at the moment, but the Virginia School Board is appealing.
Attention, Texas viewers and anybody who's going to Texas. They have a bunch of new laws that went into effect, including easier ways to shoot people, which went into effect this week. They have now criminalized adult sexting if unsolicited. It's the first state to criminalize adult-to-adult sexting. It includes, if you send a picture that's erotic, essentially, including if a groin area is clothed for a man, but he is, and they use the word turgid, you can get a $500 fine. Now, I think it's impolite to shove, obscene pictures in someone's face, even on Grindr, where everybody's trying to have sex. But there should be some permission there. But this is criminalization.
I think that if you are on Grindr or other apps that are believed to be for sexual hookups, that you should not be surprised if someone sends you a picture like that. I think you should have the right to say, no, I don't want that. Please stop doing that. And if they persist, then you could be subject to some criminalization or penalty.
Well, this was initiated by a woman who runs a woman's dating site.
Yeah.
Not for women to women, although I don't know, but it's mainly aimed at women. And of course, all of this is subject to abuse.
But is it known as a hookup site, which Grindr
Well, they're
is?
trying to meet. What do people want to meet for?
Yeah.
Lunch?
Some do, but not on Grindr so much.
Some do. So, but
Context.
it's also
Context.
well, I'm just trying to warn people that this is the law now, and you can get fined $500. But it's also subject to abuse. Somebody could say, "He sent me this, and I didn't ask for it." Well,
right.
And how do you prove that?
Well, presumably with a text, but if you don't have that, then you can't prove it. Dangerous territory out there.
In Nashville, the pastor at St. Edward Junior High School has removed Harry Potter books on the advice of an exorcist. He says J.K. Rowling's use of actual spells risks conjuring evil spirits.
Even The View was upset about that.
What about in New York? This thing with Gazeta Polska.
We talked about that last week.
No, but this is New York.
Did they? We talked about the fact
that the Carnegie Hall concert.
Yes.
Oh, we did.
But when is that? Is it still coming up?
It's not happening now because musicians have got wind of it and they've dropped out.
Good. I was going to try to gin up a Queer Nation demo there.
This is a paper in Poland that was distributing LGBT-free zone stickers and has very heavy anti-immigrant contact. The New York outlet is trying to say, "Oh, we're not that way. We don't share those views," but they do. It's all owned by the same company.
Now, there are some people who will think we have buried the lead, although we would suggest we haven't, and that is this new study of why are we gay?
Well, we didn't talk about it up top because I am sick of these things.
Well, I just don't think it proved anything. It said...
well, let's say what it is. This is something called the Broad Institute at MIT and Harvard. And they got NIH funding and other funding to look at genetic aspects of those. They looked at anybody who has ever had sex with someone of the same sex. They got 500,000.
Well, this is a recapitulation of existing studies. They took a study that had 500,000 people, and they took another study that had fewer. And they separated out those who said that they had had sex with another person of the same gender at least once.
Our problem, or at least my problem, is they're always looking for the causes of homosexuality, not of variations in human sexuality, not of heterosexuality. At least this study included women, although apparently almost no people of color.
Correct. And what did it find? They found some correlation of some genes with some people, but not everybody and not all the time. And behavior, environment is as important. So what do we know? It's complicated.
And it makes no difference to the religious bigots, no matter what they show. And they sort of acknowledge that. They had a lot of gay people at the Broad Institute who says, "Don't do this.
Yeah.
We're genetic researchers. We don't need to look at this. But they're saying this is knowledge, and we need this knowledge for what?
It doesn't prove anything. There's no, they didn't come up with some answer. They came up with multifactorial. Really? Okay.
I mean, the fear is you're going to find something on a gene and people are going to test for it and they're going to have abortions rather than have gay kids. Although that puts the right wing in a tight spot, doesn't it?
And genetic engineering and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. There have always been a variety of people, and there always will be a variety of people, and people who are of various identities give birth to people of other various identities. Just, there's variety in the world. And what about all those animals engaging in same-sex sexual behavior?
And what about those governors who did blackface when they were young? Closeted Governor Kay Ivey in Alabama apologized for doing blackface at a Baptist Student Union party in 1967 at Auburn with her then fiance, now her ex-husband. She wants to show that Alabama of today is a far cry from the Alabama of the 1960s. Really?
Not so much. Well, come on. They didn't elect what's his name to the Senate.
That's child molestation, and that's the thing. Because of Trump's association with Jeffrey Epstein, I keep saying that is something that people can't seem to forgive.
Exactly.
And when it comes out
Roy Moore,
but when it comes out, and he's still the leading Republican for the Senate against Doug Jones.
Yes.
And I think we want him to be nominated again.
They did elect him twice to be to the
not
Supreme
when they knew
Court
about
of
the child
Alabama.
molestation.
Yes, exactly. So, no, I don't think he can be elected to the Senate from Alabama these days.
What about some of these happier stories about people coming out?
Ryan Russell. Ryan Russell was a really good NFL star.
Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, drafted by Dallas, played with them for a year, and then Tampa Bay for a year, 2 years, and then he got injured. So he's been out for the last year or two, being injured, but now he's trying to get back into the NFL, but he says, as you said in the headlines, he wants to play as himself.
He's out as bisexual, and it is Bisexual Pride Month.
Yep.
He used to pray to his God to take it away, but now he says he wants to be his full self.
Did we show the pictures?
He wants the new team to value him for what he does.
Where are the pictures
and
of Ryan
knowing
Russell?
who he truly is.
There we go.
There he is, and there's with one of his boyfriends.
Yes, in his football uniform on the left and with a boyfriend on the right. He's a handsome guy.
There is no active player in the NFL right now. He could be the first who is,
Michael Sam almost made it.
Didn't make the cut.
No, and there are others who've come out, a few of them after their careers, but Ryan wants to be an active NFL player.
So this is Ryan Russell, somebody named Ryan O'Callahan, who's an out gay former NFL lineman who said, there is at least one gay or bisexual player on every NFL team that he hears from on a regular basis.
Well, I was watching because I must keep up with all the news. This new HBO show, Uninterrupted, hosted by Kevin Hart, shot before his huge car accident last week or whenever, because Little Nas X was going to be on, and I thought, how is Kevin Hart going to interact with out gay Little Nas X? But they had a lot of athletes on, and they were talking, Kevin Hart was saying to Little Nas X, so you're out, it shouldn't matter, you're good for you, terrific, blah, blah, blah. This is to make up for his homophobic jokes that he got blasted for.
And he got cut as the Oscar host.
Yes, exactly. But all these pro athletes, football players, basketball players, whatever, are saying, 20% of the population is gay, right? So if we've got 485 people in the NFL, that's a lot of gay football players. And I'm sitting there thinking, really? Okay. But they were all very cool about it and resisted making too many homophobic remarks.
Okay. Now, another prominent person, Kristen Stewart, 29, the star of the Twilight films.
Cute.
Once dated Robert Pattinson, is now dating women, including currently Dylan Mayer. We have that picture of the two of them together. They make a lovely couple.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Mayer or Meyer. It's M-E-Y-E-R.
Let's call the whole thing off. Anyway, Meyer. Kristen said...
There they are, relaxing on a front stoop in Soho.
Kristen there on the right. So she said, I have fully been told, if you just do yourself a favor and don't go out holding your girlfriend's hand in public, you might get a Marvel movie. And her response was, I don't want to work with people like that.
Who would want a Marvel movie anyway?
And in 2017, she said, you're not confused if you're bisexual. It's not confusing at all. For me, it's quite the opposite. Stewart is by the way, is in the reboot of Charlie's Angels in November.
Oh, well, then she's getting some kind of quasi-superhero role. But she has been out and quirky for a long time.
Yeah.
So good for her.
So what about the ex-gay guy?
All right, so that is, what's his name?
His name is McCrae Game, G-A-M-E, that's his name.
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Founded an ex-gay ministry. They had worked on it for decades. He's 51 years old. He comes out, he condemns his past work. He says, I'm a religious zealot that hurt people. But he said his wife is ridiculously understanding of his coming out.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Oh, now you sound like Lara Spencer.
Exactly. That was a deliberate reference.
Okay.
But he gave up hope for wellness a couple of years ago, but now he's actually coming out as gay.
Well, I mean, some of these people come out, but they won't condemn everything that they did. He is condemning what he did.
He is condemning it, but
Harvey Firestein is not ready to forgive him.
Well, these people cause a lot of harm.
I don't want to date him, but we're
not talking about you. We're talking about the people he actually harmed, who he led down a very self-loathing and self-destructive path.
And I think look, I ain't no liberal on this stuff, but I think that's what we want, people to repent and spend their lives repairing the damage that they've done.
Absolutely, but we don't have to...
Can't bring back the people who committed suicide
We don't have to throw parties for them.
No. But I'm saying it's better than just coming out, taking advantage of gay life and not realizing the damage that you did.
Of course.
All right.
And speaking of repenting a little, in Boonville, Mississippi, the Boones wait, I have to read this. I really should write a little bigger in my notes. Boone's Camp Event Hall, an event space, rejected holding a wedding for a mixed-race couple and said that we don't conduct weddings for mixed-race couples or same-sex couples because it's against our Christian beliefs.
That's what got Bob Jones University in trouble back in the 70s, and they couldn't get any more federal funds.
And when the black family involved with the part of the mixed-race couple challenged them on this and said, well, where in the Bible does it say that? The woman said, I'm not going to argue this. I'm not going to talk about it. We do not do these weddings. Goodbye.
She was told what the law is, even though Mississippi has a religious freedom law.
Well, Mississippi does have a religious freedom law.
But that does not override these racial discrimination laws. So
well, we don't know that yet.
Well,
we don't know. It's under litigation.
Even Samuel Alito, in writing one of the decisions around this, said we're not going to start opening up the racial discrimination laws.
Nonetheless.
They're just happy to be able to discriminate against us. And she's sticking to that. Now, I'm not going to do the gays.
Well, she then sat down and read the Bible, looking for these references that she claimed were there. And she contacted these people back and said, I have read and read and read and studied and studied and studied, and I can't find any of this in the Bible.
Well, I mean, the Christian right was very much against interracial marriage on religious grounds.
Yeah.
It's all about, God created these people on this continent and these, and you don't mix blah, blah, blah. That's where it is in the Bible. It's nuts.
Yes, Ham and whatever.
Well, it's an extremely racist society, and people had religious
No, but you talk about the conversion therapy guy repenting. Well, this woman in Boonville, Mississippi, running this event space, went and looked up what she thought was true and apologized when she found out it wasn't. Do we know that? I only read about her apologizing.
But it's about racially discriminating.
Yes.
It's not, and she said, but I'm still not doing the gays.
Okay, I didn't read that part.
And she doesn't have to in Mississippi. You wouldn't have to do it anyway.
Well, isn't that law still under legal challenge? the religious freedom law?
I don't know where it is. We'll find out. We'll
Okay.
call it. And then there's Michigan.
Okay.
All right. There's a group called Drag Syndrome.
From the UK.
These are folks with Down syndrome. They're a drag troupe, and they're very prominent over there. And they've been touring the world. So they went to, there they are. They were scheduled to appear as part of an arts festival at the Tanglefoot Studios in Grand Rapids.
Which is not a progressive town.
Well, the owner is a guy named Peter Meijer. He's a Republican. Mayor?
Yeah.
He's a Republican candidate for Congress, and he deemed that people with Down syndrome had to be protected from this exploitation and canceled them. And they had to scramble for another venue that was accessible and all this other stuff.
And they posted, and one of their stars posted a video.
The star's name is Justin Bond. Don't get confused with Justin Vivian Bond.
But talked about being discriminated against. So let's look at the video of the drag syndrome performer talking about being discriminated against.
Being with drag syndrome has been one crazy ride, and I've always wanted to become famous dragging, and I don't want people in America to think that Daniel is abusing us. He's trying to help us become more famous, as we all are, and I think it's great what he's doing. He's doing a wonderful job supporting us and building us up to become famous drag queens and queens. And it feels great to do that. I just want to live my life as a drag king also than being a drag queen. Being a drag king is what I want to do for a living. And I know some Americans think it's terrible, you've got Down syndrome, you don't have all it takes. But I think we do have all it takes because we deserve to be the right to be in drag and to perform. And that's what we do. And we deserve to be what we to do for our lives and give ourselves more power, more energy to us to become wonderful drag queens and kings.
Hear, hear.
Yes, so they got a lot of support, and they found a new venue. So,
The Wealthy Theater, it was called.
So that happens this weekend in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and you can go see Drag Syndrome.
Yeah,
there.
the name of the group. I'd like to see them if they come to New York. Let's have them in.
Okay.
All right. And North Carolina, great news. A state court has struck down the state legislative lines that the Republicans drew to protect themselves under the state constitution. So even though the Supreme Court says partisan gerrymandering is fine, they can't appeal this. And so they have until September 18th to draw new lines.
I was sorry to hear about the death of Michael Bauer, age
Yeah.
66, in Chicago. He was a real guiding light in the political community there. There he is on the right. On the left is his husband. And in
Roger
the middle,
Simon, yeah.
In the middle is Lori Lightfoot, the new out lesbian mayor of Chicago. He was a major
Well, he was
force.
her campaign manager.
Yeah. And she was devastated and wrote about how important he was to her.
Only 66, died of a form of skin cancer, a melanoma. But he elevated gay candidates since like 1994. He helped elect the first out gay elected official, Tom Chiola, for Cook County Circuit Judge back then.
He was a lawyer, close to Nancy Pelosi and the Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, a major force in Chicago politics.
He was a child of Holocaust survivors. He said he got into politics as AIDS intensified, and obviously it wasn't being dealt with. He served on the Lambda board and helped establish their Midwest office. He's also survived by his mother, 103.
A lighter story in Illinois, downstate. The Arcola Broomcorn Festival is this Saturday, and there will be a Stonewall 50 contingent in the festival parade. There are only 2,000 people in the town, and it is best known for this, and this is why I'm doing this story, to have the excuse to show you this picture. The Precision Lawnmower Team in the parade at the Arcola Broomcorn Festival. The Precision lawnmowers are very famous.
I'm first time seeing it.
So now there will be a Stonewall 50 contingent with them.
You want to talk about this later?
Yes.
Okay.
In Charleston, West Virginia, trans man Michael Critchfield is suing the County Board of Education. He was the one confronted by a teacher in the boys' room who demanded he use the urinal to prove his gender identity. Real horrible harassment. In New Jersey, a trans woman abused and beaten in 4 different men's prisons. The ACLU sued, and so now she's going to be transferred to a woman's prison. And in Idaho, a trans woman in a male prison who had tried suicide and self-castration. The court says the state must pay for her gender confirmation surgery and transfer her to a women's prison. The governor is fighting that, but the court says she has every right to that. And just a note, September 11th, upcoming commemorations of the World Trade Center attack and other attacks that day. In New York City that evening, September 11th, LGBTQ plus stories of 9/11, a storytelling event put on by the Generations Project at St. Mark's Church, 131 East 10th at 7 p.m.
Right there in the East Village.
And we'll note that in our show note.
All right, I'll make a note of that. I'll put a star next to it.
Okay. International news.
Well, in Nicaragua, tough place. They're arresting people who are against the government. They're killing them. In this case, they arrested a prominent LGBT activist, Ulysses Rivas. He's the one in the yellow shirt on the picture there in the center. He had come back to Nicaragua. He was working out of Costa Rica where it was safer, but his father died. He came home. So they trumped up a charge of robbing a woman, and family protested vigorously. And he's also an environmental activist, and he protested cuts to benefits under President. This is under President Daniel Ortega. You know, hundreds of people have been killed since the protests began in April 2018. The government likes to bring trumped up criminal charges, torture them. He's trying to, he's under arrest. At least his case has attention.
In Moscow, there's a production of a new play called Out of the Closet, which is stories of gay men coming out to their mothers. The theater was very careful to say we're selling tickets only to people over 18 because the Russian anti-propaganda law is about no homo promo to minors. Nonetheless, the production was interrupted by a dozen thugs running
ultra-nationalists,
interrupting with homophobic shouts.
At the audience as well as the stage.
Yes.
And the police come in and they arrest the staff at the place.
The director and 2 of the audience members.
But not any of the protesters. They were obviously in league with each other.
In Brazil, right-wing President Bolsonaro has forbidden teaching gender ideology in the schools.
That's one of Pope Francis's favorite words, phrases. He likes to use that to attack transgender people who he says are equivalent to nuclear war on humanity. That's what he says.
And a study in the UK found that the Home Office has refused asylum requests from 3,100 plus LGBT people in the last few years from countries that criminalize homosexuality, such as Pakistan,
1,000 Pakistanis,
Bangladesh, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Iran, Uganda, Iraq, Jamaica, and Malaysia.
You have these judges sitting there and they go, prove to me you're gay. Well, you're not you're a man, you're not effeminate enough, you're a woman, you're not butch enough. It's that kind of stuff. And then they say, no, next, you're faking.
It's incredible.
Well, they got to get
Imagine
on it.
having fled your country, because of the violence, and this is how you're treated by an asylum
Can
judge.
we give them some better news?
Yes.
In Bermuda, they held their first Pride March in Hamilton. The former tourism minister flew in to participate. 5,000 plus people in their first one. This is Bermuda.
Yeah, well, where they have had a years-long fight over legalizing same-sex marriage. It's regarded as a homophobic country, but 5,000 people showed up.
They actually did it on the 25th anniversary, I believe, of when gay sex was decriminalized,
Yes,
which was ahead of us.
Yes.
And not New York, but the United States.
Yeah. But the organizers were shocked. Shocked, I say, by how many people showed up.
You know, we're always shocked the first Christopher Street Liberation March after Stonewall. A year later, people were shocked.
We were shocked this year when 45,000 people showed up for the Queer Liberation March.
It was a very happy kind of shock.
Very wonderful shock. And then in Ukraine, Odessa had a pride parade, a second biggest city in Ukraine.
Now, this was supposed to be their 5th Pride March, but the right wing appealed to the government, and the government said you can't do it. So they didn't do it on that street. They did it on another street, and actually they got hundreds of marchers, and they were protected by the police. And there was only a small group of right wing protesters.
We're generally very resourceful.
Generally.
In the Cayman Islands, the Court of Appeal heard the marriage case. Same-sex marriage has been legalized by a lower court, the Grand Court, but it was stayed pending this appeal to the Court of Appeals. The appeals court president says that no matter what decision we come up with on this, the government must legally recognize same-sex couples in some way because we cannot discriminate in this way. But in the Philippines...
Well, their high court unanimously dismissed a marriage equality case. They said that the plaintiff didn't have standing.
Because it was brought by lawyers, not couples.
This is a matter for the legislature, and we urge you to go to the legislature. And of course, the president, Duterte, who's scary, has met with gays and said, I'm for this.
The Constitution is not gender specific as regards marriage, but
the New York marriage law wasn't gender specific either, and that didn't stop the High Court in New York from stopping same-sex marriage.
How well I remember. And they tried to send it to the legislature too, which they did, and the legislature finally legalized it.
Okay.
All right, AIDS news.
Well, I was very touched by this story. Lily Tomlin, who we love, turned 80 this past weekend, and we learned from Vito Russo's brother. Vito was a big AIDS activist, gay activist back in the 70s and 80s. His brother...
Celluloid closet.
His brother, Charlie...
Act up.
Said that Lily had been sending Vito money to sustain him during his illness. Because, I remember...
Well, they were very close friends.
Yes, and I remember Vito being broke a lot because he was a writer, and when you get sick and you're a freelance writer and you can't work, you're not getting any money.
Right, there they are together.
And actually, Lily was was she the narrator on Celluloid Closet?
I think so, yeah.
I think she was. Anyway, Vito would have turned 73 had he lived this year.
Young.
Yeah.
AIDS, the communications director of AIDS United, Kyle Murphy, resigned his position and put out a long statement saying that AIDS organizations are too cozy with pharmaceutical companies. Too many of them are taking too much money from the pharmaceutical companies, particularly Gilead, maker of Truvada, which is used both to treat people with HIV and in another form as PrEP to prevent HIV transmission. Gilead is on the board of AIDS United and on the board of a number of AIDS organizations, I think. He says these organizations have the best intentions, but they have this creeping conflict of interest, and it's a problem. And he didn't even mention the lawsuits against Gilead for the way they have manipulated the availability of PrEP.
So you've all heard about God's Love We Deliver. We've been feeding people with AIDS and people with other illnesses in their homes for years. And it's all held up as wonderful work. But Larry Kramer went and posted on Facebook that the food is tasteless and unappetizing. And so I tried.
Sometimes people are so sick that they can't taste the food.
I tried it. He said the rolls are like cardboard. I mean, he went into detail on Facebook. And so all these people in the AIDS community said, oh, we'll fix this. I called Goslow, I haven't heard back. But somebody said, oh, why don't you call Sandy Gallon? And he said, isn't Sandy dead? Did he eat the food? But I shouldn't make jokes about this because I know a lot of people who volunteered at Godslove over the years have done a lot of selfless work there and things. It's a big place. They serve a lot of meals.
They
he says,
do.
People would appreciate some fresh fruit. But we'll follow up on this story next week.
I'm sure there's a reply in the offing.
I haven't heard yet. I haven't heard yet.
Now, don't you have a review of something?
No, we have Indiana. Ryan White.
Oh, okay.
Ryan White died in 1990.
We're not there yet.
The
Sorry,
Ryan White Care Act was named after him. He had an historical marker erected in his memory in Hamilton County, where he transferred to go to school after he was shunned in Howard County, where they treated him like a pariah.
Kokomo.
His mom, Jean White Ginder, was there, as well as his sister, Andrea. This kid, he was a hemophiliac. He got AIDS. He became the face of AIDS for a lot of people. Michael Jackson.
Elton John, who practically Velcroed himself to Ryan White because he wanted to deal with AIDS, but he was still closeted at the time, and he didn't want to talk about gay men with AIDS.
Michael Jackson Velcroed him was one of his big pals too.
Yeah.
And they played a Michael Jackson.
Poor little white Ryan White.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
he was treated horribly. He was a great kid.
He was a good kid.
Died at 18 in 1990.
They made him use a separate bathroom. They wouldn't, if he touched something in the school, they would. This is in the first school. And then the other school did training for everybody.
Yes.
All the students, all the parents, everybody. We're going to get through this. And that helped the country move through this to some extent.
Yes, he became quite the symbol of someone who deserved better treatment. And the good school, instituted comprehensive education in the classrooms, too, for ongoing students. And it was a real model for the way to do it right.
Okay.
All right, on to entertainment news. Well, we should mourn the death of Valerie Harper at age 80. Now, given how long we'd heard about her problems with cancer and her near-death experiences, the fact that she achieved 80, I thought was a great triumph.
Indeed. And she would try. She worked as much as she could in her last years. A gay guy named Michael Martin wrote that she burst the blister of shame that surrounded being the other, single, more than a size 6, past a certain age, with laser-sharp awareness. Her Rhoda character on Mary Tyler Moore included a gay storyline at one point in 1973, where Phyllis is trying to say, "Why aren't you going out with my brother?" or something like that, and she just finally says, "He's gay," like that, just like that.
I remember.
And it was a big breakthrough at the time.
Yeah.
Just to say it that way. And not make a joke about it.
A couple of follow-ups. The Country Music Association has nominated Lil Nas X, mentioned before, for Musical Event of the Year for the Old Town Road remix with Billy Ray Cyrus. He's the first out gay nominee ever for the Country Music Awards, which will be broadcast November 13th. And
who's the lesbian that they just welcomed back?
Shelley Wright.
Shelley Wright was welcomed back to the Grand Ole Opry, which she thought would never happen. I mean, she was having trouble getting gigs.
It's amazing that she's welcome back, and a great sign, really, of progress.
Well, there's all this crossover, especially with Taylor Swift, who apparently Trump is very afraid of.
Well, he should be, because she has a huge, huge following, and she is very influential with her followers because she's very transparent and open about what she says. And it turns out there's a follow-up to the MTV Video Music Awards where she performed her You Need to Calm Down, which is the big hit and has all the drag queens in the video. And it turns out she insisted that MTV give each of those other performers awards along with her at the award ceremony, or she wouldn't perform.
Wow.
Nice. Thank
Money
you.
talks.
Yeah.
All right, I saw a play, an off-Broadway play called Eureka Day at the Walker Space downtown. This is by a guy named Jonathan Spector, and it's sort of about liberal parents on a school board of a small private school, but they're having a, now the first part of it is, you know, them being all very, you know, PC and everything and tiresome in a way. I thought that was kind of cartoonish. But then there's that scene that we just had the picture of. So then they have a board meeting and they say, well, it's all about vaccination versus not vaccinating children. And that's the big issue before the school board. And in that scene, they let the other people in through being able to virtually type in their messages. And it is one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen all year because people really let loose. And then the second half of the play, they do have an intermission. It really gets serious. And I'm very pro-vaccination, but it's really dealt with maturely and movingly, and so I recommend it from that point. And that sort of the hero of the piece is Elizabeth Carter, the actress, as a lesbian parent who was new to the board, and she's sort of sane, or is she? I mean, no. I mean, you know, but you know, you kind of identify with her, and then somebody confronts her. So I would say
it's complicated stuff. It really is.
It's there through September 21st. See it and find out.
I mean, I'm pro-vaccination too, but I do remember when I was little that the thing to do was get all the kids together when one of them had the mumps or the measles, and so everybody could get it and then develop immunity.
Right.
All right. Malik Yoba, who's a longtime TV star and who we ran into many years ago when we were doing AIDS education, and I wish I could remember in what context, but I remember him approaching me on a subway platform once 30 years ago. Well, he has now talked about his attraction to all women, including trans women, and wants to demystify this and deal with toxic masculinity. So he came out with a very enlightened statement that said, hey, you know, let's stop thinking so narrowly and let's acknowledge that the world is a wider place.
We need to be open to all kinds of folks. Well, there are, I saw in London the rework of Company, the Stephen Sondheim musical, where the lead, Bobby, was played by a woman.
Right.
And they reworked that show.
And they're bringing it to Broadway.
It is coming to Broadway in the spring. Of course, Patti LuPone, plays the... what's that role called? I mean,
well, the one who sings "Here's to the Lady." It's the Elaine Stritch role, is
exactly.
what it is. Yes,
and she's terrific in it. And there's also the couple that's afraid of getting married is now a gay couple, and I actually thought that was the best thing in the show. So.
Well, we will look forward to seeing that.
We look forward to seeing that.
And are we looking forward to the next Democratic debate next week on the 12th?
Right, it's on the 12th.
Yeah.
Oh, I am against the way they do these things. I think that I think actually the party should take control of them and have forums that allow people not to talk in 1 minute sound bites and not make it so much of a game show.
Well, isn't it to some extent controlled by the party? Aren't there these rules?
Except for the fact that the questioners are always the cable people. And
well, it's ABC this time. You get the lovely George Stephanopoulos. It's too bad we don't have Lara Spencer on that team. That could make it more fireworks.
Her consciousness has been raised about these issues.
Well, I think there are 4 questioners. One of them is a woman, Lindsay, someone. I don't watch ABC
I
News
would like a forum perhaps where activists ask questions.
Wouldn't that be refreshing?
Well, we've done that in local
the candidates would never sit still for that.
We've had Senate debates in New York where that's happened, U.S. Senate debates where they've had to answer.
I've been a questioner, but not on TV in the same way, not as wide a broadcast.
You're all welcome on Gay USA. We'll see you next week.
Bye.